The warriors of sunlight, followers of their god and lord of sunlight Gwyn, attempt to keep the peace throughout the land. Their most fervent follower, who travels across Lordran helping those in need, rises to the occasion as the chosen undead adventures towards the first flame. Solaire, warrior of Astora, has trained for countless years to provide the much-needed support to the ailing denizens of this cursed land.
With the advent of Universes Beyond, Magic the Gathering has released cards that reflect a host of iconic, popular, and interesting franchises. In this series, we'll take a look at fan-favorite characters from different mediums and muse on what their cards may look like. In the spirit of Universes Beyond, join me today in asking the question, what if... Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. My name is Kieran, and welcome back to another exciting episode of MTG What If, where today we are asking the question, what if Dark Souls was in Magic the Gathering? It's also the question we've been asking for the last 3 episodes, but, you know, such is life. My name's Kieran, and welcome to the channel. This is a Magic the Gathering focused channel for the most part, although we've dabbled in video games and may do so in the future. If this is your first time joining us, I highly recommend checking out the first episodes of this series, where we take a look at some other more, I guess, not more iconic, but like the base, the core of the set, before diving into this episode where we're kind of going more into the nitty-gritty of Dark Souls. This series is about seeing what cards would look like if they were designed into Magic the Gathering, with an emphasis on making sure that the cards feel very flavorful to the franchise they're from. Not to say Wizards of the Coast haven't done that. Cards from their Street Fighter series, for example, do feel very Street Fighters in many ways, with cards like Chun-Li getting multi-kicker. We're going to lean a little more probably towards the flavor of it all than Wizards of the Coast typically would, but if you want to see the design philosophies for this series, go check out the first couple of episodes, especially the first episode where we break down kind of what we're looking at. As always, if you like the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below to let us know what you think of the designs, and if you want to follow us, you know, praise the sun. Today's episode is sponsored by... Actually, we don't have a sponsor. Maybe Zevia one day. I very much hope so. But we're going to jump into the first card of today's episode, the lead commander. And I'm excited to show this one off. I think it's one that many people will recognize. So without further ado.
With some jolly good cooperation, we shall certainly give the sun its due.
Praise the sun! Nothing like some good jolly cooperation. Today we're looking at Solaire of Astora, one of the key figures in Dark Souls 1 and probably the most recognizable character from the series, I would argue. Praise the Sun is... Name a character in Dark Souls that's more recognizable than Solaire. I guess like the first knight you meet perhaps, but I don't think there is one that beats Solaire. He's the face of Dark Souls in my mind. Solaire is a mono-white commander. Controversy ensues. Let's see if we can design a mono-white commander that people want to play. So for white, and white, it's Colin's favorite fucking color. I'm sure he'll love this one. You get a 3/6 with Vigilance and Mentor. For those that don't know, Mentor is an ability that says when the creature attacks, you have another creature attacking with it that has equal to or less than, I think equal to or less than? You know what? I'm sure the editor will correct me. Power than the creature with Mentor. You get to put a +1 counter onto the mentored creatures. A way to kind of show that they are helping the other person train and become better warriors, which is very thematic for Solaire, because in the game he kind of helps the player throughout these difficult challenges and boss battles and such. So his Vigilance Mentor for a 3/6 for 3 mana, quite strong, but he does have Soul 2, so if your opponent does manage to kill him off, they are going to get 2 Soul tokens. Now, Solaire isn't actually a boss in the game, he's just one of the NPCs, and therefore he doesn't have a boss soul, for those wondering. And Solaire's first big ability is that when he attacks, you get to reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to white. So we're going back to devotion, like we saw with Guinevere and Gwendolyn. So you want your white devotion to be high. He starts with 3 already, because he's a 3 white pipped character. Choose a creature from among those cards with power equal to or less than Solaire's, and put it onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Shuffle that creature into your library at the end of combat. So basically, let's say you have 10 devotion to white. When Solaire attacks, you're going to reveal the top 10 cards of your library and put one of the creatures that has power equal to or less than Solaire's onto the battlefield. This is to kind of represent the fact that Solaire's going to a bunch of different worlds and helping different people. And then when that battle is finished, that creature gets back, shuffled back in the library. They go back to their server, back to their game. I thought it was a bit of a thematic little thing for him to do. He's a very cooperative character. He always talks about jolly cooperation. His big ability, now, I mean, his first ability is very good. You get to basically bring a creature onto the battlefield for free attacking, and you can really build a deck just around that. But he's a white card. He's a white legendary mythic. And thing that people always joke about with white cards is their inability to draw cards. So I had to give Solaire a bit of card draw. When an attacking creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, draw a card. So this is really cool with his other abilities, because basically the way you can stack his triggers is that you get to stack the first trigger when he attacks. You basically get 2 triggers, right? You get the second ability we see, the paragraph, and the mentor trigger. If you do the second one first, and you get to stack them how you like because you're the active player, then you could actually bring a creature onto the battlefield first, then mentor it if it had less power or whatever than Solaire, putting a +1 counter on it, and then if that creature were to die in that combat, you're going to draw a card. So fun little loop that this character provides. I think Solaire's pretty cool. He has a big butt too. He has 6 toughness, so he's scrapping with the best of them. Only Ornstein with double strike will be able to get over him. Not even Gwyn will be able to overcome this Warrior of the Sun. So that's Solaire of Astora. I think he's a really fun card. Let me know down in the comments. Do you think 3 mana for this card is too cheap? Or do you think mono white deserves a little bit of pity? Let's jump into the first support card. I think it's going to be one that is immediately recognizable.
The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
All right, the first support card is, of course, Praise the Sun. So in the game, you unlock gestures that you can do, basically little emotes for the Zennials out there. It's like a Fortnite dance, I guess. I don't know. Is that a topical? Am I just aging myself here? I don't know. Anyways, Praise the Sun, the original Fortnite dance, question mark. So in online multiplayer, you're not actually able to communicate with the enemy. You can only, or the ally. You can only do so through these gestures, and one of them is Praise the Sun, which is this iconic pose that you do, and in which if you are part of this specific covenant, you actually enter the other person's world golden and shining and brilliant. As he says, if only I could be so grossly incandescent. What a line. What a line. I actually decided to go with Solaire's cards to make them all a little bit on the cheaper side of things for the most part, to pair with the fact he's only a 3 mana commander. So Praise the Sun is 1 white mana for an aura enchantment. That's to kind of represent the fact that the creature it's attached to has that gesture. It's indestructible because, you know, it's a gesture. You can't remove it. It's just something that creature does. Obviously, if you can exile it, then sure. I guess you can exile their ability to Praise the Sun. It is an enchanted creature, has Vigilance and Mentor, which is already pretty good for 1 mana. So you're getting Vigilance and Mentor, and it's this indestructible 1 mana enchantment. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. It says when Praise the Sun is attached to a creature, that creature's controller draws a card. So it's also a cantrip. So it's a 1 mana, indestructible, Vigilance, Mentor, draw a card. And they say they don't make good white cards. Well, they do here at Filthy Casuals. So you put Praise the Sun on your creature, you get to draw a card, it gets Vigilance and Mentor. Probably are equipping it to Solaire. He already has Vigilance and Mentor. The enchanted creature also has a fun ability, Tap. That's to represent it doing the gesture. Attach Praise the Sun to another creature you don't control. So that's to represent the jolly cooperation. You basically tap your creature, move Praise the Sun to another creature, and that creature now has Praise the Sun. And when they Praise the Sun, they're going to have to move it onto another creature who's going to have to Praise the Sun. And every time it moves, that controller is going to draw a card. So you can use this sort of as like a political tool where it's like, hey, Colin, I'm going to use this card and give it to you, and you're going to draw a card. But then when you go to Praise the Sun, you have to give it back and put it on my creature. And so you can kind of do this back and forth. It's supposed to be this group hug sort of effect. And that's kind of why it's 1 mana, because at the end of the day, you're drawing your opponent's cards. But it's all for the glory of the sun anyways. So that's Praise the Sun. Let's see what the next support card is going to be.
As it turned out, Solaire's incredible prowess is a product of his own training, and nothing else.
All right, we are. I feel like I need a bit to be like, this is the next episode of Legendary Equipment with Kieran. We are going to continue the cycle with Legendary Artifact Equipment with the Sunlight Shield. Now, the Sunlight Shield is an interesting piece of equipment because it's actually not that special in the game. Like Gwyn's Greatsword, you don't actually get that much out of equipping it. So it was kind of a struggle to figure out what this should do. Now, I kind of got some inspiration from the flavor text, which comes from the actual in-game item. It says, as it turns out, Solaire's incredible prowess is a product of his own training and nothing else. So Solaire's kind of a beast. He's actually really hard to put down in the game in terms of like when he's your ally. The bosses have a really hard time killing him. And it's all because of his amazing prowess as a warrior. So I try to lean into that with his shield here. So his equipped creature gets +0/+2. It's a shield. Should get a little bit of a defensive bonus. Obviously has the equip 3 or equip to a legendary creature 1. We've seen that before. But now whenever an ability of equipped creature is triggered, you can pay 1 white mana, praise it. And if you do, copy that ability. You can choose new targets for the copy. You could attribute this to the shield, but I like to think that this is kind of amplifying the warrior's existing abilities and prowess. So it's really good on Solaire because Solaire is going to be able to either mentor twice, or do his second ability twice, or allow you to draw another card when a creature dies twice. You could do all of them twice if you have enough white mana. So this little shield actually goes a really long way with its commander, and I'm excited to see, you know, what other cards, what other Magic the Gathering white cards would benefit from having their triggered abilities copied. I can think of a few that draw cards that would probably benefit mono white, but that's Sunlight Shield. I think it's a really cool design, and I'm looking forward to equipping Solaire with it and triggering all his abilities twice.
The brave fighters who bore these medals are gone, but the sun never sets.
All right, we're on to the next support card, and I'm gonna be brief you on a little secret. I actually think Solaire and his support cards are my favorite of the episodes we've done so far. Let me know down in the comments. We've done 4 episodes at this point, 3 of which have been commanders with their support cards. Which one has been your favorite? I actually think the designs, flavor, and everything around this has been really fun to do and design. I'm actually really excited to maybe play Solaire one of these days, but Sunlight Medal. So these are an item in Dark Souls that you get for helping another person in their world defeat a boss. And you basically get the Sunlight Medal, and you get to bring it back to this covenant, this group, and give them the Sunlight Medals to be able to get more and more benefits as you rank up through the covenant. So Sunlight Medal is a 1 mana artifact. You know, you can put it up there with your soul rings, and it has a really weird, interesting effect that I think you guys will like. So you can tap the Sunlight Medal and put a vow counter on it. Target player other than you chooses 1. That player draws a card, that player adds 2 colorless mana, or that player gives target creature +2/+2 till end of turn. This is to represent the fact that you're, as a part of the Covenant of the Sun, the Sunlight Warriors, you're going out and you're helping other people defeat big bosses and dark foes. This is a group hug card as well, where you're basically putting a vow counter on Sunlight Medal and making another player either draw a card, get 2 mana, give a creature +2/+2. You can really use it in a lot of versatile ways. I really like this design, but because you're not choosing it, you can't really use it in a way to abuse it, because your opponent can always just draw a card if they want. So even if you do it at an inconvenient time for your opponent, they can just draw a card, which is really powerful for them to get from your card. What do the vow counters do? And you may have noticed some brackets around some words in the first part. As long as Sunlight Medal has 1 vow counter on it, creatures you control get +1/+1. If it has 3 vow counters on it, draw a card at the beginning of your upkeep. If it has 5 vow counters on it, cleave Sunlight Medal. You might be wondering, what the fuck's cleave? It's an ability that came out in Innistrad Midnight Hunt not too long ago, and it basically was only used for instants and sorceries. So we're actually breaking MTG rules a bit here. Cleave basically says remove the words in the square brackets. So if you look above, you'll see that other than you is in square bracket. Once this has 5 vow counters on it, you're going to be able to use the Sunlight Medal to do any of those 3 effects for yourself. So all of a sudden, this card becomes a card draw soul ring buff spell. At instant speed, you can tap it. So it's really, really good. Basically, what you have to do is use it 5 times. Unless you're going to be a cheeky son of a bitch and proliferate it. We will pretend like you don't have proliferate in your deck or ways to put vow counters on it. You're going to be able to immediately get +1/+1 on all your creatures. So it's kind of like a 1 mana anthem effect in colorless mana, which is very strong. But you have to remember that you're maybe giving your opponent a free card or mana to cast a spell they normally wouldn't have been able to. It's a cheap little way to get a little anthem effect for your white deck. Usually white decks have a lot of tokens and creatures as well. If it has 3 vow counters, you're drawing a card at the beginning of your upkeep. So at 3 vow counters, you know, you've given your opponent, let's just say your opponents always choose to draw a card, because that's probably the most powerful ability. You basically said target opponent draws 3 cards, or opponents draw 3 cards, but now you're drawing a card every turn on your upkeep. It becomes kind of a pseudo Howling Mine effect. But then at 5 vow counters, so you have to imagine you paid 1 colorless mana and you've made your opponents draw 5 cards. Now all of a sudden, you get to draw a card on every turn. You could really use Sunlight Metal to draw 2 extra cards every turn, which is very strong, and it's going to become a problem for your opponent very quickly if they don't deal with it. But your opponents probably aren't going to mind you using it on the way up to 5. Let me know what you think about this design. It was my way of basically saying you're gathering Sunlight Metals to rank up in this covenant and helping people in a weird way. It's a bit of a longer card, but I actually really like this design. It's starting to lean into this group hug strategy that Solaire naturally fits into.
There's no shame in cooperation.
All right, the next card we're looking at is called Call on Another. This one is one I named myself. It doesn't actually come from the game, but it basically is the ability to summon a ally. You may remember that from episode 1. It was the ability to, you know, bring an ally to your aid from another world. It's the way Dark Souls does multiplayer. This is kind of another way of looking at it, but specifically looks at it from the point of view of these golden warriors of light that are part of the covenant that are coming to help you. Little side note, when me and Colin used to play, Colin was always in the Sunlight Covenant, and so whenever Colin comes to my world, he's always golden. Call on Another is a 2-mana sorcery, so it's pretty cheap. Target opponent chooses a creature they control. So this is kind of, imagine you're summoning your friends from in online multiplayer. So target opponent chooses a creature they control. You gain control of that creature until your next turn. While you control it, it can't be sacrificed. So, you know, you can't do any cheeky shenanigans where you sacrifice the creature once you have it. And it gains, if a creature dealt damage by this creature dies, this creature's owner creates 2 soul tokens. So that little part basically means that you gain control of your opponent's creature, but your opponent is now incentivized to give you a decent creature, because if that creature kills anything, that opponent is going to get 2 soul tokens. So it's this weird, like, give and take situation. But lastly, when you lose control of the creature, so if you are able to keep control of it till your next turn and you lose control, it goes back to your opponent. Or I guess if somebody else takes control of the creature, you get to search your library for a card named Sunlight Metal, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So that's to represent the fact that, you know, they helped you defeat a boss, and when you defeat a boss in Dark Souls, you get a Sunlight Medal if you're in the Covenant. It's a cheap way to take control of your opponent's creatures, but it's going to require a little bit of negotiation and tabletop diplomacy to get what you want and make sure your opponent gets something in returns. Call on Another. Let me know what you think about this one. I think it's another kind of group huggy effect, but, you know, if you can snag one of your opponent's powerful creatures, maybe they only have 1 creature, and it's the strongest one, then you're going to be able to capture it for 2 mana for a turn, or a turn cycle, I should say. But yeah, that's Call on Another. Let's jump into the last support card for Solaire.
The Warrior of Sunlight Covenant, followers of Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, smite their foes with powerful bolts of lightning.
All right, this last one is another one that I'm excited to show off. Similar to last episode's Saga, we are looking at a new interesting card type. The name of the card is Warrior of Sunlight, and it's a class. It's a legendary enchantment class. So those who've played the Forgotten Realms set, they introduced the idea of this almost pseudo-Saga type effect on enchantments and their classes, and they were to represent being a fighter or a wizard or a rogue or a warlock in D&D. Kind of leaning into that for the Covenants. This is a class Warrior of Sunlight. It's like you're joining the Warrior of Sunlight Covenant. It's a 2-mana legendary enchantment. Now, the way that these classes work is basically you can level them up like a level up creature. So the first level, you're going to have to pay 2 mana to go to level 2, and then you're going to have to pay 5 mana to go to level 3. The first effect as it enters for 2 mana is that you get to search your library for a card named Praise the Sun, put it onto the battlefield attached to a creature you control. So this is a way to tutor out your Praise the Sun. If you already have it, I mean, it doesn't do much else, but at least in a commander game where you can only have 1 copy of every card. You know, it is thematic because when you join the Warriors of Sunlight, you get the Praise the Sun gesture. So as you play Warrior of Sunlight, you're going to get your Praise the Sun card right away, and then for 2 mana, you'll be able to level it up. And when you level it up, it gains this next ability. And the next ability says pay 2 colorless and a white mana. So 3 mana, tap it. Tap the class itself. Target warrior or knight creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature. This is starting to push Solaire into being kind of a warrior knight themed deck. You might want to have at least a few powerful ones in your deck to be able to utilize this enchantment. Basically, it allows them to throw a lightning bolt, you may say, at a creature and deal their power to another creature your opponents control, which is having a removal spell every turn. It's quite powerful. For 5 mana, we go to level 3, and this is where we get into some interesting little shenanigans. So, creatures entering the battlefield under your control gain +3/+3, Vigilance, First Strike, and Ward 3 until end of turn. So, it doesn't give them haste. So, you're going to need to find a way to get creatures on the battlefield and have them come in attacking. Now, what a surprise, Solaire has an ability just like that. So now when Solaire triggers his ability and you are able to look from the top of your deck and pick a creature to go into the battlefield attacking, that creature is going to get +3/+3, Vigilance, First Strike, and Ward 3 until end of turn. The cool thing too is that if you are able to give your creatures haste somehow in a mono white deck, maybe with some boots or such, you're going to be able to have Vigilance and be able to defend on the crackback as well. So it's a bit of a versatile effect that you're going to end up paying about 9 mana in total to get, but I really think this Warrior of Sunlight Covenant card is very cool. I'm curious to see your guys' thoughts. How do you think Covenant should be done in Magic the Gathering in terms of Dark Souls? This is the best way I could figure it out. Yeah, let us know down in the comments. The last thing I'll mention is that the formatting of this card is different than a typical class card, and that's only because the program I used to create these cards didn't quite have the formatting. That's the last companion card for Solaire of Astora, and that'll be all for this episode. All right, everybody, praise the sun. We are done with this mono white commander, Solaire of Astora, and his support cards. I think this is my favorite out of all of them so far. Just in terms of like creating a soul, like I'm excited to maybe create a Solaire deck and put these cards in them and praise the sun and do all those sorts of shenanigans. But as always, if you like our content, please perhaps follow us. We also have a Twitter account, which I'm sure you'll see somewhere on screen or down in the description below, where we will post our videos and such. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Praise the sun, praise the sun, praise Gwyn, I guess, Lord of Sunlight, before he became Lord of Cinder. Thank you for watching. Now, we here at Filthy Casuals are, of course, traversing the multiverse and asking the question, what if these franchises were in Magic the Gathering? Today, we were looking at Dark Souls, but who knows what the multiverse may bring in the future. My name's Kieran, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.